Hey guys, welcome back. It's me, Black Hat, and today I have a brand new deck profile for you today. Um, Note that this is post Battles of Legend Relentless Revenge. I was able to get my hands on a few cards that I really wanted. Unfortunately, my local sold out of the boxes of the set, so I couldn't really pick up one. But either way, as long as I got the cards I wanted, that's really all I cared about. So anyway, for today's video, I'm presenting you guys my new Darklord Lair of Darkness video. This is a brand new deck I've been wanting to try out for a while. I learned that Darklords were very powerful with Lair of Darkness, and yeah, I thought I should bring it out to you guys as soon as I could, and here it is. So let's go and get started, and I'll show you what I got. Alright, so starting off, and I was really happy this got reprinted in the Battles of Legend set. It's much easier to get now. It used to be like 25 bucks, but now it's only like 7. But we're starting off with 3 copies of Darklord Ixchel. Amazing card. You can discard this card plus one other Darklord card from your hand, and then you get to draw 2 cards. And this card has a quick effect. You can pay 1,000 life points, target one Darklord spell or trap in your graveyard, shuffle it back into your deck, and then you get to use that card's effect. So, cards like, let's say, Darklord Contact. You can special summon one Darklord monster from your graveyard back in defense mode, or banishment where you can add a card from your deck to your hand. So essentially, like, the Darklord monsters copy the effects of your spells and traps, and you essentially spam them. And like you can essentially just keep stacking them. That way you can get a much higher advantage, and you get a lot of pluses with all the Darklord monsters. All right, so moving on, we have 3 copies of Darklord Superbia. Amazing card. If this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can special summon one fairy type monster from your graveyard except itself, and every Darklord monster is a fairy type, so that's why it really helps you get an advantage. That way you can boost your monsters, you can keep boosting your defenses, because all the Darklords have really impressive strengths and defensive strength, so that's why it's like amazing. And the fact that he's really easy, you can also pitch him for trading because he's level 8, so yeah, amazing card. Alright, now moving on, we have 2 copies of Darklord Nastin. Does a little bit like, he's a little like Ixchel, but only you discard 2 other Darklord cards to special summon him. But like Ixchel, you pay 1,000 life points, target one Darklord spell or trap in your graveyard, apply that card's effect to him, and then you get to shuffle back the card you targeted back into your deck. So essentially you keep recycling your resources, I should mention, with Darklords too. Like the more you copy the effects and the more you recycle, the better, because like you don't want to like lose those cards forever. But it's really amazing. And also unfortunately, you can only special summon Nastin by his own effect once per turn, so yeah, that's kind of the big problem with him. But overall, he's actually still good. Not a bad level 7 and real easy to summon as well. Alright, so for the last of the Darklord Ixchel, we got 1 copy of Zerato. If you have 4 or more dark monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can tribute summon this card by tributing 1 dark monster. And since this is technically an effect, you can actually use Lair of Darkness as effect, where you could tribute one of your opponent's monsters to bring this guy out. And then, of course, you can send 1 dark monster from your hand to the graveyard, destroy all monsters on your opponent's side of the field. So it's a really good, but unfortunately, he does have a downside effect. At the end phase of the turn you activate this card, you have to destroy him. There's no option on that. So, but overall, you could still bring him back, after you summon him that way, and yeah, it's just really good. Alright, so now we're moving on to the Dark Lair engine. This one was a bit of a tough decision to make, so I couldn't figure out like which ratio was the correct one, but this just seems to be the one that feels the best. I run 2 copies of Lilith. 3 just wasn't working out as well as I would have wanted it, unfortunately. I mean, I could run it back to 3, I really could. But it's just like, I felt like the deck felt unbalanced in terms of its spells and traps, so I felt like I had way too many monsters and wasn't drawing enough spells and traps for some reason. So I felt like I bumped Lilith down to just 2. And plus, like, all the trap cards you need are also searchable through the Darklord cards, which I'll get to later. But there's only 1 trap card that I need Lilith for, but overall it's still not bad to run her at least. And of course we run 2 copies of Arima. Because again, the Dark Lair engine is very small in this deck. It's not, because you're still focusing mainly on the Darklords. The Dark Lair is just a bonus engine to run because it really helps the deck get some synergy going. And Arima, of course, if you discard him, you get to add Lair of Darkness, or if you tribute him, you draw 1 card, or if you tribute 1 other dark monster, you get to add a dark monster with 2,000 or more defense. And finally, we got 2 copies of Darkus Diabolus. Since You still do some tributing, like with the Zerato and of course Lilith and even Arima. It's still not too hard to bring him out. And also, if you do a tribute summon, you can bring him out as well. So he's really good. All right, for the hand traps, this one was also kind of tough to figure out, like which one I really wanted to run, but I felt like that this one was actually the best one. We have Cyframe Gear Gamma, and of course, without him, with him, you also need to bring out Driver. I forgot to mention that the Darklord deck is also really good when going second, because like you also need to be able to like in case your opponent activates a monster effect during your standby phase, you can instantly negate it, bring out Cyframe Driver, and then you could bring out a Cyframe Lord Omega, which I forgot to take out of my dinosaurs, by the way. It's sitting there, but generally, so for now I've got another card that's just filling in, so we'll just pretend it's Cyframe Lord Omega, but I'll get to that later. Alright, so now we're moving on to the spells and traps. We have 3 copies of Banishment of the Darklords. This card is your searcher. You add 1 Darklord card from your deck to your hand, so you can add a monster, spell, or trap. But unfortunately, it's once per turn. But again, that's the best part about the Darklord monsters, because you essentially keep copying and stacking the effects of these cards. But of course, you have to shuffle those targets back to the deck. But overall, Banishment's good because you can pretty much search out anything. It's basically your spellbook of secrets of this deck, essentially. That's actually one of the best way to analyze this card. Next up, we got 3 copies of Darklord Contact. This card acts as Monster Reborn on its own. You special summon 1 Darklord monster from your graveyard in defense mode, and you can only use this once per turn. So, like, let's say you had Superbia and Ixchel, for example, in your graveyard. If you revive Superbia with this card, you can bring back Ixchel on the same turn. So it's like it's another plus. And of course, you have more Darklord monsters in the grave. Use Ixchel's effect to shuffle Darklord Contact, get another one out. You know. For draw power, we got 3 copies of Lair of Darkness, since everything in the deck, well, with the exception of the hand traps, is dark attribute. But yeah, you draw 2, banish 1 dark monster, and of course we also have triple trade-in, because we have a pretty good number of level 8s, the Darkest Diabolus, and of course the Superbius. So trade-in is also great for draw. Next up, we got 2 copies of Lair. Of course, like I said, it's a small engine, so you don't really need to run it at 3. It's just there as a bonus, just that way you can get dish out a little extra pain to your opponent. So Lair of Darkness is still good, though. You still want to be able to produce tokens whenever you need to, and then do some link plays. But yeah, just 2 is fine. And for extra negates, I decided to go ahead and run these. 2 copies of Called by the Grave. Just because, like, the one hand trap that really hurts this deck is actually Drone Lockbird. Ash Blossom doesn't necessarily stop me in this deck because there's, like, again, more than enough draw strength. But if Drone Lockbird hits me at any given point, I'm stuck. I lost my entire turn. So Called by the Grave is a good card to run. I was thinking maybe I should run it at 3, but I'm still trying to debate which one I'd rather run at 3. But for now, I just run it at 2. Now moving on to the traps, and this card's hilarious because, again, Lilith can search it out, and plus I open up at least with maybe 1 or 2 almost every time I played with this deck. It's 3 copies of Waking the Dragon. This card is stupid because, like, you can special summon 1 monster from your deck or your extra deck. And as long as it's a monster that doesn't have, like, too specific of a summoning condition, like my Fangacredius dragons, they all need Fangacredius to summon, so they are not summonable through this. But there's a long-ass list of what you can summon with Waking the Dragon, which I will get to, like, what my Waking the Dragon targets are for this deck. Now, whether or not they'll be permanent or temporary, it's still, like, I'm still trying to figure that out, but for now, I'm actually already satisfied with what I chose so far. I'm still in the search of an but Last Warrior from another planet. I'm still looking for that guy, and it's really hard to find him. But if I can find him, then yeah, I'll definitely add him in my extra deck. Same thing with Raid Raptor Ultimate Falcon. Surprising that my locals didn't have a single copy of it, so I was like, oh, guess I'll just have to look somewhere else. Anyway, moving on, we got... Now, this trap card is insanely powerful because this is your deck's version of Infinite Impermanence, but it's the Sanctified Darklords. This card is so good. So, like, everyone already knows what Infinite Impermanence does. It targets and negates a monster effect, and if it's on the same column, you can also... Of a spell or trap card while it was set, you can negate a spell or trap. But Sanctified Darklords is even better, in my opinion. And it only works if you have Darklords. But you send 1 Darklord monster from your hand or face up from the field to the graveyard. Negate the effects of one effect monster on the field until the end of this turn. And if you do, you gain life points equal to its attack strength. So it's not original attack strength, so basically it's its current attack strength. And the fact that, again, if you have like Ixchel, Zerato, or sorry, not Zerato, but Nastin out, you can copy this effect. And what's really good about this card is that it does not target. So this is both impermanence and breakthrough skill. Like, it only without the targeting. Like, it does not target at all. So, like, let's say if I was up against Spirals, which I did play test against Spirals, it was really powerful against it. Like, I target, or again, doesn't necessarily target, but I aimed for the sleeper, negated his effects, so my cards were safe, and then my opponent tried to chain off with, Firewall Dragon to bounce back my monsters, but since I already had a second one in the graveyard, I immediately shuffled back the first one, and then made his Firewall Dragon use its one-time bounce. So yeah, this card is insane. It gives this deck the synergy it needs, and plus it helps you replenish your life points. Since you do have to pay like 1,000 life points to be able to copy the effects again. So that's why Sanctified Darklord is definitely the card that helps Darklords get the synergy it needs to be a lot more powerful than it ever was. Sorry, something got caught in my throat there. Alright, so finally for the last two traps, we got one Darklord Rebellion. You send one Darklord monster from your hand or face up from the field to the grave. Destroy one card on the field, and it doesn't matter whose side it is. And what's also good is that this card does not target either. So so basically that's the best thing about these. Like, these cards just don't target. Next up, we got one copy of Darklord Enchantment, which, like, of course, doesn't target. But this card is basically mind control. You send one Darklord monster from your hand or face up on the field to the grave. Take control of one face up monster your opponent controls until the end of the turn. That's what's so great about Darklords, is that they don't target. So, like, you have a non-targetable mind control and a non-targetable MST card, like, cards essentially. So, like, that's why these cards are so great. If anything, that's pretty much what your win condition is with this deck. It's like nothing targets. The only thing that does target is when you target your own spell and traps to recycle them, but that's it. So anyway, moving on to the Link monsters, we have, or extra deck, I'm sorry. We got Saryuja's Skull Dread, of course. It really helps this deck out a lot, and it's not hard to get more than at least 4 monsters of different names to summon it. It really isn't. Of course, we got Firewall Dragon, because, like, this deck really fills up its board. Like, it really does. One Trigate. Decode. We do run a very small Nightmare Engine, of course, so just the Phoenix and the Cerberus. Let me move everything a little closer this way. Underclock Taker. And since, again, we still make tokens, Spider. Pretty standard stuff. Now, these are interesting. These are basically my, what do you call it? Waking the Dragon targets. Because these do not have any specific requirements to summon them. I mean, yeah, of course there's tuners, but of course I confirmed this with my friend who's a judge actually at the locals. Since, like, as long as it doesn't say must be synchro summon or must be fusion summon or anything like that, then you're safe to actually summon them. But of course we have Dracochitis, one of my favorite dark type dragon synchros. Cannot be destroyed in battle, and during your standby phase you can half the attack of one of your opponent's monsters, and your opponent takes damage equal to that monster's of the attack it lost. So that's also really good. We got Beals, which is of course summonable through Waking the Dragon. I should probably mention this now. Waking the Dragon, if you summon any monsters from your extra deck this way, they're not going to be revivable, because you didn't technically summon them correctly. So, just keep that in mind. We also have Super Heavy Samurai Steam Train King. The reason I run it is because he has a really cool effect. For any spells and traps that aren't Darklord related, and you basically recycle everything, but your opponent, has a bunch of spells and traps like Sky Strikers. This card, once per turn, lets you banish... or you discard 2 cards, up to 2 cards, then target as many cards your opponent controls, destroy them. And also, once per turn, you get to banish all spells and traps in both players' graveyards, and if you do, inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each banished card. Or for each card that got banished by this effect, I'm sorry. And this card can attack while it's in defense mode, so 4,800 defense, that's pretty good. And for the last of our Waking the Dragon target, we have one Cyber Dragon Infinity. Basically because, like, the fact that you can still attach, like, Xyz materials to make them. Like, you can target one attack position monster, and then add it to him as Xyz material, and then of course he can negate monster spell and trap card effects by detaching one Xyz material during either player's turn. So Cyber Dragon Infinity is definitely a great Waking the Dragon target. I highly recommend it. Alright, so for like actual rank 8 monsters that I can summon, we have Zombie Sign, just requires 2 level 8 dark monsters, which isn't hard. And the fact that he has 4,500 attack and he can negate anything, but when you negate anything by detaching one Xyz material, he has to switch into defense mode, so that's his actually primary weakness. And of course we got Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, which is one of my favorite Galaxy Eyes monsters, because at the start of the battle phase you can detach one Xyz material. All other card effects, or all other face-up cards have their effects negated until the end of the battle phase, and also you can attack twice during the battle phase. So he's an amazing card, honestly. Now this one's kind of a proxy, so again, this is not actually Lancelot. So I mean, yeah, it is, but this is Cyframe Lord Omega. I forgot to take him out of my dinosaur, so forgive me for that. But Cyframe Lord Omega is good because during either player's turn, you can banish him and one random card in your opponent's hand, and then until the next standby phase, you get to summon him back to the field, and he would actually go to your main monster zone once he's summoned back. Well, technically, it's not summoned back; he's returned back to the field, and of course, your opponent gets that card back from his from the banish zone back to his hand. So, but overall, it's really good just to like minus your opponent's hand like almost every main phase. So, a great card to run. But yeah, again, my fault for forgetting to take it out on my dinosaurs. He's supposed to be in this deck as well, just because the Cyframe gear or the Cyframe Gamma and Driver really helped me make it. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this new deck. Again, this deck is really fun. It's really powerful. The Sanctified Darklords really helped this deck. So anyway, I'll catch you guys next time around, and yeah, have a good weekend.